All right, so it's section 5, our last section. Let's not waste any time. Let's get right. So this last section deals with subscription, upgrade and downgrade, users, client requests, accountant tools, and year-end procedures. So subscription level. Sometimes new QBO users are not satisfied with the subscription level they choose. They may need to upgrade or downgrade to a more suitable subscription level for their business needs. So for example, I had a client a couple of years ago who started off with the Plus account. And then after we started inputting their chart of accounts, we realized the limit for Plus is 250 on Plus and below. And we quickly said this was not the subscription level this client needed because they had several sub accounts and several levels of processing with their assets. So we decided to go ahead and go up to advanced. So there are procedures in doing that. Let's look at them. And first, let's look at, as just said, the chart of accounts. And it's over here. For Plus, is 250 as well as Essential and Simple Start. But for Advanced, it's unlimited. Same thing with class and locations. And then billable users was another issue that particular client had. So with Plus, we were confined to 5. They needed more than that. So again, between the chart of accounts and the amount of billable users, Advanced was the better choice for them. And then you're talking about double the money. But sometimes that happens. So if you need to do that, you'll go to your client's QuickBooks Online account. And then from the gear icon, you'd go to Account and Settings. And then you would select the Usage tab. And then that's where you would see what applies for that client and their subscription level. All right, so again, what's the easiest way? One way is to go to Accounts and Settings. The other way, the easiest way, is to go to the Client menu from your practice. So under your practice, you go to the Client menu, and this reveals the client's QuickBooks Online accounts as well as their any payroll subscription plans that they also have. While the client list can give you a quick glance at a client subscription level, you can find more details from the original one I explained. So you could go to Accounts and Settings and look at your through their QuickBooks Online account, or you can go to Subscriptions and Billing from your QBOA. So if you're in your QBOA, you would go to the gear icon and go to Subscriptions and Billings, and that's under your company, the 4th column over. The subscription and billing screen organizes the clients into different tabs according to their payment methods. The Account Build Subscription tab shows subscription status and QBO subscription levels for each client whose subscription cost you pay. You will see the current estimated monthly total and details of any previous bills and payments. The Client's Build Subscription tab then shows subscription statuses for your QBO clients who pay their own costs directly to Intuit. The Billing Details tab provides you an overview and a monthly breakdown of your QBO and QBO payroll subscription charges on behalf of your clients. You can also update your payment details, which we'll cover later. The Revenue Shares Payout tab is where you can sign up for the Revenue Shares program and track payout details once enrolled. So this was one of the things I saw a change in with Section 5. In Section 5, we didn't see any questions previously for the revenue share payout, but in this now 2024 versions, they do. So we'll look at one. In addition, the Billing Detail tab provides an overview and a monthly breakdown of your QBO and payroll subscription charges on behalf of your clients. You can also update your payment details, again, which we'll cover later. So if you or your client decide that they should change their QBO subscription level, there's a few things that you want to discuss with them first. One, features. When you downgrade, that means losing some of the features in your client's QuickBooks Online plan. So you want to make sure that the plan still meets their needs. Again, remember we looked at that comparison chart and you'd be able to go over each limitation to each subscription plan with them and see if it meets their needs. Then the other thing is third-party apps. Changing a plan might affect any third-party apps that they already have connected to their QBO account. This happens when the new plan doesn't support the feature that the client app works with. You want to review each one of the client apps and make sure that they are compatible. And by doing that, you'd go to the apps in the left-hand navigation pane, and then you would select the client apps tab, and then it'll show you what apps that client has. The last thing is plan discounts. ProAdvisor and direct discounts continue when upgrading and downgrading a client subscription level for the duration of the discount period. The discount rate doesn't change, but the base subscription price changes according to the upgrade or downgrade. Then if you have that revenue share, the client downgrade or upgrade, once the client downgrades or upgrades their subscription, then if it's within the first 12 months, then your payout will then be adjusted accordingly because you'll get a percentage of that. However, downgrading won't remove your payout altogether. It'll just decrease it. If you pay for your client subscription plan, you can only change their subscription from the QBOA account. To do that, you would navigate to subscription and billing, as I showed you, from the gear icon. You would select account and build subscription tab. And then from the options in the action column, you would then either select downgrade or upgrade, whatever they're doing. Then you would choose the preferred subscription plan and the following on-screen steps. If the client pays the subscription level themselves, either you or they can update their subscription plan from their company file. And to do that, you'd go to the gear icon, billing and subscription tab, and then you would select downgrade your plan. All right, changing the payment method. Sometimes the client's payment method must be changed. If you pay for your client's subscription, you can update the payment method from Billing Details tab in the Subscription and Bill screen by selecting Edit Billing, or the Edit Billing Information tab that's right here, as you see. So again, you would go billing, subscription and billing, then you'd select Billing Details, and then you select Edit Billing Information. Let's see the whole screen. All right. If the client pays for the subscription, they have to navigate to the gear icon and then billing and subscription, and then they would select the pencil icon next to the current payment method. Another place to look at when deciding whether or not to upgrade or downgrade is in that usage tab. That's the first one I spoke about. Going to the gear icon and then account and settings, and then looking at the usage tab, and then looking at the client's company from there, and looking at their user limits, billable users, chart of accounts, classes, and location, and discussing with them what's appropriate for their business needs. All right, what are two ways? I keep doing that, I'm sorry. What are two ways to check a client subscription level in QBOA? By looking at the clients list and going to the clients tab, or from the subscription and billing screen from the gear icon. When downgrading a client subscription who is on revenue share, what would be affected as a result of the downgrade? So this was that new question I was saying. So we didn't really see revenue share prior to 2024. We might see it now and going forward. So have this in your notes. If the client decides to downgrade, if it's within the first 12 months, your payment will be adjusted due to the price change. All right, here's another question. If your client needs to upgrade their subscription level and you pay for the subscription, what steps would you take? From your QBOA account, you'd go to gear icon, subscription and billing, account and bill subscriptions, and then you would go to action and then upgrade or downgrade. If your client needs to downgrade their subscription, they pay for their subscription. What are the steps? They would go to gear icon, subscription and billing, and then they would select downgrade. Our next topic is managing users. The team menu on the left-hand navigation, which you would access only through QBOA, is a hub for your team members, known as your firm users. It makes it easy to review and edit their details or customize what data they can access from your firm's books. Admin users can open the team menu from the Your Practice area on the left-hand navigation. There are 3 tabs in this screen. That's Users, as you see down here in the bottom, Users, Roles, and Certifications. Let me scroll down a little so you can see the screen. So you see here under Your Practice Team, and then these are the 3 tabs. The screen opens by default at the Users tab. This displays an overview of each firm user's role and status. From here, admin users can also edit a firm's user's personal information and role. The Role tab then allows you to view, manage, and create roles for your firm users. The Certification tab allows you to track users' ProAdvisor certifications and their expiration dates. Apart from the primary admin, who has access to everything, there are predefined roles and custom roles that you can give your firm users. Both of them are gone over in detail in the training section, but I still have in the next slide the standard roles. I have a few questions on this. So here we have the role company admin and the description. I'm not going to read each one, but this is found in your training section. The next one is standard all access. And the last one is standard all access without payroll. Again, this is in the training section, but if for whatever reason you don't have access to that, I like to bring it up here. So then we have standard limited customer and vendors, standard limited customer only, and standard limited vendors only. So the team menu makes it easy to manage users' permissions. To add a new user, you would select Add User button, or to manage the permissions of an existing user, you would select Edit from the action column of that user. A firm's user profile has 3 sections: personal info, roles, and access to clients. So after you have personal info, you have role section. You can assign the firm's user to a role from the dropdown. Any custom roles you've created will appear in this dropdown underneath the predefined roles. The last section of the profile would be access to clients, and this is where you can select which client the firm user has admin access to. If needed, you can also view user activity and delete users who no longer need access to your file. To do either, you would select the 3 dots in the action column of that user. So here are some sample questions. What things can you do from the team menu in QBOA for a user? You can add a new user, delete a user, assign roles, and track users' ProAdvisor certifications and their expiration dates. So as you know with me, I say, I'm going to give you all of them. They might have a question, and they might have 2 of these, and you have to select, they might say all that apply or which 2 of these. So have them all in your notes. Those are all the 4 things you can do from the team menu. Here's a second question. Who would have access to a specific client's notes? The team member assigned to that client. You hired a new employee who shouldn't get access to the firm's book yet. What standard roles should they be assigned? Standard, no access. And here's the last one. What is true regarding the roles in QBOA? All roles can be customized to add or remove access to different areas of QBOA. The next topic we're going to look at is client menu. The client menu in QBOA allows you to have a quick overview of all clients. You can even add notes to all team members with the appropriate permission levels and what they access. The client menu in QBOA is a hub for all your client information, even those who don't use QuickBooks or QuickBooks Online. It brings clients' contact info, notes, and documents together, and offers links to access transactions and tools to solve issues and initiate processes. The main area of QBOA is where you can view and manage your clients. It has 3 tabs: Overview, Bookkeeping, and Payroll. And it opens at Bookkeeping by default. So this is what it looks like. So here's our overview tab, and it starts with the overview tab, then bookkeeping by default always comes up, and then payroll. Okay, let me scroll down so you can see. All right. So this is your client menu, and those are your 3 tabs. So under the client menu, under the overview tab, you have different columns displayed, and this is what the information that goes along with it. You can have email, phone, and those are the contact details for that client. Banking, that's any online banking transaction, payroll alerts, prep for taxes, tax returns, lead, that's the account user that acts as the primary lead for that client, and actions. Then in the bookkeeping tab, gives you an overview of the client's book's review status. You can choose how many rows to view per page by selecting the grid gear icon. So let me scroll down so you can see that. All right, and then it has the leads listed here. And then the last one, payroll tab. The payroll tab only lists clients who have or had QBO payroll subscription. It has columns that display the following information for clients with an active QBO payroll subscription. Let me scroll down so you can see that. And here are the columns and the information. I got this from the training section. All right. In the client menu, we can edit client info, add a new client, make a client inactive, or delete, then and or change the lead assigned to that client. Each of these are covered again in the training section. Note, to manage the lead accountant assigned to a client, you would select the filter icon and then edit leads. If you want to change the accountant user that has access to this client file, this is where you would do it. You would open the edit client screen, scroll down to team access section, and select or unselect any users there. To make a client inactive, you would select the down arrow next to the client from the action column, and then you would select make inactive. To show inactive clients from the client menu, you would go to the grid gear icon and select the box include inactive clients. So you would select that little box there with the check mark that says include inactive clients. So let's look at questions. How does one update the lead for the client from the clients menu in QBOA? You would select the filter option and then select edit lead. If there are notes in the client's detail screen, who would have access to these notes? Any team members that you gave custom access or custom permission. I see now they're using more the term permission, so I added that in. So it might not say custom asset now, it might say custom permission instead of custom access. Have both of those in your notes. If you made a client inactive in the clients menu, where would you go to see them again? You would need to go to the grid gear icon, and that would be right below add client. And then you would select the box, the little check mark next to the term include inactive clients. Oh, I think I lost that last question. The next one is work menu. The work menu is accessible from the left-hand navigation of QBOA. It allows you to create tasks and projects and assign them to yourself or to your team members. It also gives you a bird's eye view of client requests and approaching deadlines so that you can better understand your team's capability, manage their workload, and never miss a deadline. From here, you can do one of these three things. Create a project, create and manage project templates, and select client requests. As I always tell you, the training section goes over all of these in detail. So again, create a project, create and manage project templates, and send a client request. So from the manage templates, from the work menu, you would select create template if you wanted to create one from scratch. And then you would edit the project as usual and add as many tasks as needed. And then if you wanted to make it a reoccurring project, you see this little slide here. It says repeat. You would slide this to the right. And then down here, you would select what the dates were to repeat. And then once you have that, you would go down to the bottom and select save template. And then that would set up a reoccurring project. Client requests. So to create a client request, you would go to the work menu. You would select create client request. You would add the client and a descriptive title, due date, and any details the client may need to know. To add a document, you would select upload from the document section. To send an email notification, you would go notify client, and you make sure that slider's on. And then when you're done, you would click share. The client request appears along with the projects and tasks in the work menu. Clients can see your requests and shared documents in their My Accountant tab in their QuickBooks Online. So they would go to the left-hand navigation and select My Accountant. And then from there, they would have two tabs, Requests and Shared Documents. So on the Request tab, they could sort requests by due dates. And on the Shared Document tab, that's the second one, they would be able to upload, rename, delete, or, oh, wait, what happened to the rest of it? I think I have it in the question. Upload, download, rename, and delete. Those are the three options that you can do. I don't know why I stopped it there, but that's what you could do. Those four things. You can upload, download, rename, and delete files in your shared document tab. So here's some questions. Which statements about creating a client request in QBOA are true? A document request appears in the client's QBO company under the My Accountant menu. A document request notification can be sent via email by selecting Notify Client, and you would have that saved email, and it would let them know that they have a document in their shared document tab. What is the correct process for setting up a reoccurring project for the same client? You would create a new project, and then you would use the repeat slider. You would turn that on by sliding it to the right, and then you would set the frequency and duration. Here's another question. What actions can clients do to a file in the Shared Documents tab? Oh, here's that earlier where I said I didn't put it. This is what you could do. You could upload, you can download, you can rename, and or you can delete. So have all four of them, because I don't know what they might have. One of them, they might have two of them. So have all four of the actions that you can do in that tab. Well, that your client can do. I'm sorry, the client can do in that tab. What is a way to communicate with your client from QBOA? You could go to the Work tab and go Create Client Requests. And then I guess another one would be you can go to the Work tab and share a document. But I guess for this particular question, the answer was Work tab and then Create Client Requests. Here's another question. How can a client access the shared document in their QBO? They would go via the My Accountant on the left-hand navigation pane. And another way you might see the answer is by My Accountant Shared Document tabs. So the next topic we're going to go over is Accountant Tools. So under Accountant Tools, if you're in your QBOA on the top, you'll see Accountant Tools. If you click on that, there's several options for you to choose. It's Prep for Taxes, Reclassification, or Reclassifying Transactions, ProConnect Tax Online, Write-Off Invoices, Undo Reconciliations, Reporting Tools, and Management Reports. We're going to be mostly looking at reclassifying transactions for just the ProAdvisor exam. For the advanced is when we look at these other features. When you're reviewing a client's books, you may find transactions that were incorrectly categorized. This could have happened because the client didn't understand which account to assign those transactions to. In some cases, you might find a large number of transactions that need to be reclassified. Correcting these transactions individually would take a long time. So one of the most amazing tools in QBOA is the reclassification transaction tools, and it allows you to reclassify large batches of transactions in one go, saving you a considerable amount of time and effort. You can use the tool to reclassify transactions by account, and if the client has the relevant tracking features turned on, by class and location. So how do we get it? Remember, I just said a minute ago, if you're in your QBOA on the top, you'll click on Accountant Tools, and then all these tools will come up. And one of them would be reclassifying transaction. You would select that. And there is an interactive tutorial in the training section on this screen. So when you click it, it'll have you click different things in a little drop-down menu, and it'll explain each section of that screen. There are, however, some limitations to the reclassifying transactions. Here they are. There's 3 of them. You can't change the payment account, meaning your bank or credit card, for expenses. You can change the account for inventory adjustments, because they're connected to your inventory shrinkage and asset accounts. And the last one is you can't change the expense account for billable expenses. So you can change the expense account, but you cannot change the income account that's related to the income transaction. Restrictions, there are 2 here. Transactions that don't contain a customer name cannot be reclassified to accounts receivable, and transactions that do not contain a vendor's name cannot be reclassified to accounts payable. These 4 things, is it 5? I'm sorry. Yep, these 5 things are in your training section. They also cannot be classified. Again, this came right out of your training section. So here's some questions. Where would you go to review your client's expense account to see if any transactions have been miscategorized? You would go to reclassification. I keep saying that. Reclassify transactions from your accountant tools on the top of the screen. What are the limitations of the reclassified transaction tool? You can't change the, now, okay, as I always tell you, have them all in your notes. They're probably not going to have all of them. You might only need to know 1 or 2, but have them all in your notes. So you can't change the payment account, meaning your bank or credit card for expenses. You can change the account for inventory adjustments. And the last one is you can change the expense account. You can change the expense account for billable, but you can't change the income account. The next one. Which accountant only tool enables you to categorize a large batch of transactions in only a few clicks? That would be reclassify transactions. Which three fields can be found in this screen? Account type, date range, and transaction type. There's another question coming up with those 3 answers. An accountant user can access and begin reclassifying transactions in which area of QBOA? You would go to Accountant Tools and reclassify transaction. Obviously, they must have a couple of them like this. Oh, that was it? Oh, I thought there was more. Okay. Book review. So now this is month end and then we end at year end. So book review. Reviewing the books regularly helps keep the books tidy and up to date so that the clients can get an accurate view of their finances and make the right business decisions. The Book Review Center helps carry out period end reviews by pulling all of the tasks together into a single place and listing transactions with potential issues. To start reviewing the books, you would select Book Review from the left-hand navigation of your client's company file. Note that this menu option is only available to accountant users accessing the company file via QBOA, and that client users will not see it. The Book Review Center has 5 main tabs that take you through performing a periodic cleanup, solving issues, reconciling accounts, reviewing financial statements, and even creating report packages. So in another lesson in the future, if you choose to do the advanced, we'll do this in a lot more depth. And like I always tell you, the training section also covers each one of these. The first one that we're going to, well, first they have us looking at the book review. So one of the things you have is cleanup here. There's an interactive tutorial, as I mentioned earlier, with the reclassifying tool screen. Also, it's here in your training section for the book review. So if you click here, it steps you through each section of the book review, starting with the setup. So you'd be able to click here, and it would step you through what exactly each screen offers. So the first tab is the Setup tab. It provides the checklists and tools for your client's needs to review and clean up the company's information, settings, balances, chart of accounts, and bank accounts. This step is vital as it helps to identify any discrepancies or irregularities. There's also the option to resolve minor issues with an adjusting journal entry if appropriate. All right. The next stage in the book review process is to take care of any problematic transactions. So the Transaction Review tab automatically finds errors such as incomplete expenses, and it allows you to categorize transactions that the review identifies. So let's look. Oops. So in the interactive one, the next one they'll have you look at is the Transaction Review. Okay. Oops. Sorry. Once you've dealt with all the transactions that had issues, the next step is to ensure that all the accounts are reconciled. So the account reconciliation tab, which is the third one over, shows the current status of accounts and the number of unreconciled transactions. The fourth tab is the final review tab, and it prompts you to investigate unusual and unexpected balances and review the financial statements for accuracy. And the fifth and final tab is the wrap-up tab, and allows you to prepare reports, create and send report packages, close the books, and even create your own additional to-do checklist. Tracking progress in the client's list. So the progress tracker icon in nearly all of the section in the book review center makes it easy to mark the status of each step in the book review process. However, the bookkeeping tab in your QBOA client list also helps to give an overview of the book review status for each client. And so let's look at that. All right, so I'll have the book review, have you done it, and then who your lead is. All right. So again, these are your 5 tabs, and your training section goes through an interactive tutorial with you. I encourage you to make sure you look over that, because I would say about 20 to 25% of the questions that'll be on your Section 5 exam will probably be covered in this section. So you want to make sure, if I haven't covered something, you thoroughly go over that and have notes on this topic. So here's some questions you might see on it. What can be done to see the setup tab in the book review screen inside QBOA if it's missing? Then you would click the cleanup. That was the very first one. You'd click up cleanup, and the drop down is next to the book review heading. You click cleanup, and then you should see the setup tab. When might you use the setup screen in the book review feature? When recording beginning balances for a new company, and when you must make adjustments to force your books to balance. What 2 tasks can be performed from the setup tab in your client's book review? You can identify accounts with a disconnected bank feed, and then you can identify any accounts that have no activity in the last 90 days. So if you do that interactive tutorial I talked about, you will see each one of these sections and what can be performed in each section. Here's another question. Which 2 statements are true about the opening balance adjustment area of the setup tab in the book review in QBOA? It can be used to enter beginning balances in a new company, and it can be used to verify that beginning balances from a prior period haven't changed since the last time the tool was used. Using the book review, what are 3 workflow tabs? That would be transaction review, account reconciliation, and final review. What are the areas found under the open issues section from the transaction review tab? So have all of them in your notes. It might only ask for 1 or 2, but have them all. Uncategorized transactions, transactions without payees, undeposited funds, and unapplied payments. What are the 3 stages? So you might see it written like that. What are the 3 stages? The transaction review, the account reconciliation, and the final review. And here is the last page of questions for this. What statement is true about additional items in the book review? The additional items list can include a hyperlink to an outside source, like the reconciliation report, to view any unclear transactions. And then you can also create and add additional items to do. Items to the to-do checklist area. And what 4 things can be done in the wrap-up tab of the book review? You can prepare reports, you can send report packages, you can close the books, and then you can create an additional to-do list in the additional items area. So the last topic we go over is year-end procedures, the closing of the books. Those of you who are already bookkeepers, you know how nerve-wracking this process is at the end of the year. So QBO allows you to close your client's books at any frequency you prefer. You can set a closing date or even a password to help prevent changes after you close the books. Any changes made to a company file after you close the books will be logged. You can run an exception to the closing date report to see the changes. Before you close the books, you need to reconcile all bank and credit card accounts. You need to substantiate all balance sheet account balances. In other words, look for things other than bank and credit card accounts. So you also want to look at your loan balances or any asset values that are on your balance sheet. And you want to review the values on each row of the profit and loss report and ensure that they're correct for the period being reviewed. So I can just give you a little note here. I do that all the time with my clients. I make sure we print these out and we look over and see if there's anything sticking out to them. You obviously don't want to see anything like uncategorized expenses or uncategorized income, but you also want to make sure things are properly categorized. So sometimes there might be a medical expense that shouldn't be under medical expenses. It should be under, another category. So the one way is by printing out these financial documents and looking through them with your client. QuickBooks Online has a built-in tool that lets you and your clients close their books. You can access this tool in several ways. The most straightforward method is by selecting your accountant tools and then going to close books. But you can also close books from the book review screen. So remember, we have the accountant tools here, and then you can go to close books, and then we looked at the book review in the last section. Both options take you to the advanced tab of the accountant settings. From there, you can start the process of closing the books. So you go to accountant settings, advanced tab, accountant section, and you want to enable editing. You want to use the close the book slider to start the process. You would set a closing date. It could be the current date, although typically it's at the period end. So normally business, say December 31st, 20, whatever year it is. To protect the books with a password, you would select Allow Changes after viewing a warning and entering password option from the dropdown. This prevents any unauthorized user from making changes. Note that users with admin access or access to a company file via QBOA can change the closing date and password. You want to enter and confirm the password and then select Save and Done. Who can set a closing date password? Only your primary admin or the company admin, including an account user, can set, change, or remove a closing date or change the password. What should you and your clients consider when selecting a closing date? It's best to create or update a closing date when your client is fairly certain that transactions for that period have been entered. The closing period also applies to non-posting transactions such as estimates and purchase orders. Reconciliations can be conducted in closed periods without having to enter a password. Side note here, I just had a client. I think it's really important that if you have a client that has a lot of independent contractors and those independent contractors are planning to claim all the monies within that year, but you're sending the checks out real late, they might not get it in the mail until January, the first week of January. It's important to hold off on making a set date because those monies might be, I know that's a gray area, and I've had a lot of people argue over what if they cash the check in January? No, you still have to claim it for the year. But if you know that that's how your independent contractor does their bookkeeping, you do have an argument with the IRS. So to, prove that you should have used those monies for that year or that you mailed the check before the year end. And so you might want to hold off. I had a client that had a large number of independent contractors, sent it off, and it was kind of sticky business in figuring out what year were we allocating those monies to. Can you change a transaction after the closing date? Users with the correct permission can edit or delete a transaction after the closing date and after the books have been closed. In this situation, QBO will do two things. They'll display a warning asking the user to enter the closing date password, and then you would log the change in the exception to closing date report. The exception to closing date report lists all the changes made to the transactions before and including the closing date and any made after the books were closed. The report allows you to track if any of the changes are made, regardless of whether the books are password protected or not. Where can you find the exception to closing date report? Once you've set the closing date, you can access the report through the Report Center in the For My Accountant section. Note, if the closing date is not set, then that report will not be available. You'll only see details in the report when someone edits a transaction dated before your closing date. If the report shows nothing, no transactions were changed by any users in the company. You want to change an expense account after closing. What would you do? You'd go to the expense center and change the amount of a transaction. Because the transaction date is prior to the closing, a warning will pop up. And then you would have to put in that password if it's password protected. All right, if you wanted to go look at that, you'd go to the report center and then go under for my accountant section, and then you would see it there in your exceptions to closing date report. Employees and contractors. So we just talked about contractors. That's kind of like a huge year-end procedure, as well as with your employees, because you need to make sure that you send out your W-2s and your 1099s to your contractor so that they have it by the last day of January. Mileage, that's another one. So usually at the year end, you'll create a journal entry to record any mileage expense, okay? Because that's one of those expenses that you typically don't record on a regular basis, so you'll make some sort of ending journal entry. Your client might use a QuickBooks mileage tracker or whatever your procedure is in calculating mileage. The other thing is, do you use the IRS standard for mileage or not? And you would need to know certain things like automobile expenses, vehicle type, the date placed in service, and the total mileage for your business to figure out IRS guidelines on how much you're allowed to allocate for expenses. So here's some questions in this section. How can you find the exceptions to closing date report? You would go to reports and then under for my accountant, you would see it there as long as you set the closing date. The next question is, if you set a closing date with a password, can the office manager with standard access make changes to the transaction? If so, how would you track any changes they made? Well, yes, but only if they know the password, and changes would be flagged on the exception for closing date report. Remember that little pop-up window will come up for them and let them know we have to the password and this has been closed. Why might an account user not see the exception for closing date report? Because there was no closing date set. So remember we said earlier, if you don't set a closing date, then that report is not available. What's the reason a client wouldn't see the exception to closing date? Because again, there was no closing date set. How would you record mileage expense for company year-end procedure? You would create a journal entry. What are the two forms related to employees and contractors that you need to file at the end of the year? Your W-2s and your 1099s. They'll need to be filled out and mailed out to all your employees. So this ends section 5. I'm not exactly sure if I'm going on to payroll or advanced just yet. I'll see what the comments. I see somebody already in the last video asked for advanced. It's a lot. It's very draining. I'm thinking of doing some topics under QBO and QB desktop. So if you have any questions, concerns, topics you'd like me to cover, please put them in the comments, and then also update me on your progress. I want to know if you guys are passing the exam or if you didn't pass, and then also give us some of the questions that I might not have covered in the comments. Good luck, and thank you for watching.